a real privilege. Thank you so much. I only wish it could be on campus because I miss you guys. It would have been wonderful to actually be there with you tonight. I'm going to share my screen with you. So let's just have a look here. I've got a little PowerPoint presentation that I've prepared for tonight. There we go. Okay, so I hope this is all visible to everyone. I actually wanted to start with saying the year 2020, oh my word, do I even need to say anything more? It has been hectic. And I feel as if someone needs to give it a slap. And if we are going to slap it, let's give it a sensory slap. From a sensory coach, there's nothing I would rather do. This year, we needed to be 100% flexible. We needed to be adaptable. We needed mental agility, and we still do. There's been so much uncertainty, so much anxiety, so much loss, and there still is. So what I actually want to give you tonight is a bit of hope and a bit of taking charge again, because the sensory side of things is non-threatening, it's practical, it's easy, it's doable, and I think it really gives you a sense of control, whereas 2020, all of us, I'm sure, have felt quite out of control more than ever before. So this sensory talk is going to be solutions-based, and I hope practical, and I hope clear, and I hope it's going to help yourselves and your boys as well. So talking about sensory, why is the sensory aspect so incredibly important? If we look at the sensory brain, or the bottom brain, it has powerful connections. It connects with our emotions directly. It connects with our behavior. It connects with motivation and concentration. For example, if you think about your emotions, if you listen to your all-time best, ultimate piece of music, it's a sensory experience, but the emotions involved with that is enormous. If you jump on a trampoline, even as an adult, especially as an adult, you come off feeling exhilarated and energized. So the sensory and emotional connection is incredibly strong and forever linked. If you look at sensory and behavior, if you want to adjust or manage behavior, you have to adjust and manage the sensory. Let me make it practical. When you walk into a restaurant, you actually scan the restaurant and choose a seat according to your sensory preference or your style. The jewelry that you wear, the makeup that you wear, the clothing that you sleep in, the bedding that you use, the shopping that you do, and the habits and rituals is all strongly linked to your sensory profile. If we look at motivation, every time we engage in an enjoyable and a healthy sensory activity, the motivation center in our brain fires and we feel connected and energized. So that's a big thing. I think especially this year, a lot of us have felt a bit flat and a bit demotivated. Concentration, a huge one for our boys. Every time you do movement or a vestibular activity, it connects with your reticular activating center, which controls wake and sleep patterns and helps you to concentrate. So very relevant if you look at sensory and emotions, sensory and behavior, sensory motivation, sensory concentration. Now, what happened with COVID-19, lockdown, and after that? We've really gone through a sensory revolution unlike any other. Usually a sensory revolution happens during wartime, where there's a gradual change in visual input, auditory input, what we smell, and for example, other sensory input that we experience. But with COVID, we had to actually adjust to all things new on a sensory level within days and weeks. On a visual level, everything looks different, from masks to restaurants that have closed down, to empty shopping malls. On an auditory level, during lockdown, it was eerily quiet. Do you remember that? On a tactile level, oh my word, the ever-present mask and the sanitizer. And then the lack of enjoyable tactile input, like hugging and wrestling and roughing and tumbling and just playing rugby for our boys, high-fiving, fist-pumping. How do you even communicate with someone without any touch input? On a smell and taste level, everything's changed because we are dreading losing our sense of smell or taste because that's associated with a positive COVID-19 diagnosis. Very relevant. On a movement level, we've actually been deprived. The health and fitness clubs have only recently opened. So what I really want to do is I want to salute our boys. I think this generation is remarkable. They're still here, they're still standing, they're still getting on with things. So really, if you think we've been through a war, I want to actually salute the guys who have been at the coal face, our kids. If we look at online schooling, oh my gosh, I think it was incredibly tough. I think it's probably harder than they would ever let on. Online schooling, in terms of what happens to your sensory system, is hectic. Because if you think about the learning process, we need multi-sensory learning. We need to engage all our senses to actually enjoy it, to actually remember, to actually be engaged, and to stay focused and concentrate good. But our boys were actually only focusing on visual and auditory. If you look at the information senses, which is visual and auditory, they went into overload because of online schooling, digital fatigue, just being online all day, every day, and then after hours connecting socially online as well. The social senses, which is touch and smell and taste, have been both irritated with the masks and the sanitizer, but also deprived because of the lack of enjoyable touch, which allows our brain to secrete oxytocin, which makes us feel connected. So I predict on a tactile level, the kids probably felt left out or alone or disengaged or not really part of school, which is a big thing here on a touch level. The regulation sense, which is the movement sense, as I mentioned before, absolutely deprived, absolutely underutilized, without any sport, without any contact sport, with very little opportunity to exercise and engage in those enjoyable social sports. Sensory overload, guys, it's not a pretty picture, I must say. Sensory overload is when your bottom brain goes into fight, flight, or fright. Now, this little guy, obviously in fight, screaming. I hope you don't recognize your own child there. But sensory overload looks like irritability. It looks like cantankerous behavior. It looks like lashing out, meltdowns, temper tantrums, high levels of frustration, but also anxiety, also a depressed mood, a low mood, lack of motivation, and definitely difficulty with concentration. And now that the kids have adjusted to online schooling, boom, they have to readjust to online on-campus learning, which is hectic. And I predict the sensitive sensory profiles are going to struggle most with adjusting and then readjusting again. The sensory profiles with low thresholds need routine, predictability, and all things familiar. Whereas online schooling was new and they had to adjust, now on-campus learning looks very different with traffic and queuing and taking your temperature and the masks and the social distancing and all the anxiety around possibly contracting COVID-19 as well. What I can just maybe mention here is that for the next 3 to 8 weeks, you're probably going to see exhaustion. Kids are going to arrive back home feeling shattered, finished. And this is normal because it is connected with readjusting and the sensory system readjusting after online schooling for a while. If we look at different sensory thresholds, let me explain this to you just simply. We all have little nerve cells making up our nervous system, but they don't all fire at the same intensity of input. One would think, right? You've got a nerve cell, I've got a nerve cell, you've got a nerve cell. They all fire at the same intensity, but they don't. Some of us have got high thresholds and are compared to the leaves of the tree. They need a lot of stimulation, a lot of input, a lot of sensation before registering and realizing that there's even been a stimulation. Others have got low thresholds and are compared to the roots of the tree, and there's very little sensation stimulation needed before registering. So really the leaves are under processing the environment, whereas the roots are over processing, and this child is probably going to struggle most with online schooling going forward. Not online, on campus, sorry. So what we have to do is we have to really take care of the senses. We have to be practical. Sensory strategies are non-threatening, they are empowering, but really as a family, I think you need to create buy-in. You need to co-create with your child. Get them excited about the sensory side of things. It is not a diagnosis. It is not a test. It's not something that they're doing right or wrong. It's not anything that they have to do better in. It's really something that empowers them on a level where they can feel aware, they can have knowledge, insight, and understanding, and therefore control emotions, behavior, motivation, as well as their levels of concentration. If we look at the first system, the visual system, there are a couple of things that we can do, obviously, taking into account a lot of time spent on devices. The children and yourself need to take regular visual breaks. You need to diverse your gaze. You need to actually make sure that the glare on the computer screen is not too much. You need to make sure that you get outside in nature. You can massage the eye sockets, you can massage the temples, and you have to stop to take breaks. You have to also make your children aware that social contact was only possible through social media during lockdown, but now the rules have changed. They have to unplug. They have to give themselves a break. If you look at the connection between social media and depression, it is huge, it is relevant, it is real, and it's not a good idea. Another tip I've got on the visual side of things, the last input your child gets at night must be on paper and not on a screen. Cambridge have done research finding a 20 to 30% increase in the information retained if the child spent the last hour or so on paper and not on a screen. So if your child really wants to get really good marks, they need to unplug at night. You can try an alarm clock. You can try a weighted sleep mask. You can try a cooling eye mask, lavender scented, etc. There's plans to be made to actually give yourself a visual break. If we look at the auditory system, we can't ever switch off our ears. I mean, like that little monkey with the huge ears. They're ever present. You hear every single noise all day long. So what I'm trying to say is when you do have control, where you are in control of what you listen to, please advise your boys as well to be wise, to be the gatekeeper, to actually choose silence wherever possible, and to actually whenever they do engage in auditory, to make sure that it is helpful and healthy and it increases their productivity and ability to concentrate. Baroque music is known to actually increase productivity and your ability to concentrate by 30%, which is a really wise choice. Another thing that could potentially be life-changing is a set of really good quality headphones. Invest in that. Close the door if it's going to limit noise. Feed your dog if it's barking at the window. Get outside in nature. Use white noise. Make whatever plan you can to bring in visual and auditory information sense breaks. The next system we have, which is under a lot of extreme pressure at the moment, is the tactile or the touch system. I think in overload on the irritation side of things with the mask and the sanitizer, and in deprivation on the enjoyable social rough and tumbling sort of touch. What you can do there is make sure that you wash off all sanitizer and help your child to remember to do that. Moisturize. Get the boys a quick absorbing, sort of lightweight, acceptable moisturizer, because if your skin is dry and cracked and irritated, sensory defensivity is even worse. Find a comfortable mask. I mean, it's quite a tall order, and then make sure the rest of the body is comfortable as well. Try a weight. You can try a weighted blanket or a weighted shoulder wrap. Try neutral warmth. You can try brushing the hands vigorously, and then remind your child and yourself to optimize your transitional tactile activities, which is possibly a shower in the morning and a bath at nighttime. For myself, I cannot spend a long, stressful day and go straight into dinner and actually be present or pleasant. I just can't. I have to actually first take a bath with lotions and potions and powders and perfumes to be there for family dinner. There's a lot that you can do on a touch level. You can try stress balls, press stick, fidget toys, swimming, now that summer's around the corner again. Make a plan to actually re-regulate and help your son to regulate his touch system. It's very important. The other two social senses, smell and taste, we can be clever around them as well. I always use the term happy hippocampus. Your hippocampus is a little structure in the brain, and it's involved with emotions, learning, and memory. So who of us do not want a regulated emotional response, do not want to be able to learn, and do not want to be able to retain what we've learned? So think about smell and how you can use smell cleverly. Smell is the brain's preferential sense and goes straight to the hippocampus. So find a smell that's alerting at your desk space or in your boy's room where he actually works and does homework and studies. And then a different smell next to his bed. Lavender, rosemary is calming and helps him fall asleep. Whereas fir needle, eucalyptus, tea tree oil, lemongrass, orange blossom, those are the alerting and energizing smells, which can signal to yourself as well as the rest of your family when you are focusing and energized and when you are actually preparing for a good night's sleep. Taste, you can definitely engage taste in a clever way in terms of healthy, crunchy foods. Think about an ice cold, crunchy green apple. Cucumber sticks, carrot sticks. You can think about biltong strips, mango strips, rusks are excellent. Try to engage those taste buds and energize and alert the brain with the right type of food. Another thing that's incredibly important is to have cool, clear, ice cold water. Pack that fridge of yours with 20 lovely glass bottles and infuse it with lemon or with peppermint or with strawberry, whatever with apple, and make sure that it's ice cold and it's on hand for your boy to grab whenever they feel thirsty, because the more hydrated they are, the better they will focus. The more hydrated they are, the more they'll need the toilet. The more they need the toilet, the more movement they get, and the better they'll be regulated and able to concentrate. Movement breaks are crucial. Talking about movement, if we talk about the movement system, it is the brain's preferential universal regulator. Right? Find what fits. Find the exercise that works for your sensory profile. The high threshold profiles often enjoy kickboxing and fitness classes and hectic trail running. The low threshold profiles often enjoy individual training, walking, going for a long run, yoga, Pilates, aerial yoga. There's a lot of options that you can investigate, but find the fit that's right for your child and that's right for you so that it is sustainable. You're either going to make time for your wellness now, or you're going to have to make time for illness later on. The body-brain connection is powerful. So let's be clever. Let's be clever for our sake, for the children's sake, just to be able to see this year through. If we are clever and creative, we actually do know ourselves. And if you're a mom, especially if you're a mom, we also know our kids quite well. From the cat to the cattle outside, we know the whole family. Think about your child's favorite activities when he was a toddler. What sort of games and sport did he enjoy as a primary school child, as a high school child? And then think, which sensory needs did it satisfy? If he is busy with something, satisfying that need that is not healthy, try to replace it to satisfy that same sensory pathway, but in a healthy way. If you think about your child's favorite activities, you are probably going to hit the nail on the head. So what can we also do in terms of practical advice and strategies? We can adjust and we can alter. If we talk about adjust, we can adjust the environment. Look at your child's room, look at their desk, look at their cupboard, organize and declutter and adjust the immediate environment. You can also adjust rhythm a little bit. You can look at when is your child most productive. If he comes home from school and he just wants to do homework immediately and he's focused and energized, do lunch a little bit later. But if your child comes home and he is finished and upset and irritated, give him that first hour or so to actually just re-regulate. Let him swim, play with the pets, do whatever he needs to do to feel together. And then find that macro and that micro rhythm that resonates with your child. When I was at St. David's, I treated every 45 minutes, every hour on the hour, but for 45 minutes only. And then the last 15 minutes, I walked the kids back to class. I was moving, I was outside, I was in the sunshine. I went to the toilet to either use the toilet or drink water. I washed my hands, and that re-regulation for 10, 15 minutes every hour was powerful. It was incredible. I still do it. What we also have to adjust is diet. Be careful of the sugar spikes and the sugar lows. At the moment, kids are quite stressed and people are feeling quite low. So there is that crave for sugar, and that sugar mimics a happy mood. But as soon as the sugar plummets, it mimics a depressed mood. So definitely you don't need that on top of everything else. So adjust your environment, adjust to your child's rhythm within reason, adjust to a healthy diet, and also adjust to time on social media. You're going to have to do it. Online schooling, lockdown was a different story. Social media is going to have to decrease now that we're back at school. As a family, co-create together. Alter. You can alter, for example, if you have a big, beautiful, spacious guest room or spare bedroom, but your child is going to write grade 11, grade 12 exams, but he hardly has space for himself, just switch rooms. Just do it, just for now. Change the bedding, get a weighted blankie, get a standing desk, get a board chair, make a plan and alter just a little bit to help the children cope. What you can also do is create, very important, very practical. If you look at sensory smart routines, there has to be a sensory smart morning routine, a sensory smart collection time routine, a sensory smart afternoon routine, and then evening sleep hygiene routine. If you think about the mornings, guys, there's so much anxiety, there's so much apprehension, there's a lot of depression. If you think about the morning routine and your commute to school is not too long, exercising before school, especially now during summertime, is ideal. If your child can swim, let him swim 10 laps quickly. Let him go for a quick run. Let him do a bit of weight training if possible. But if your time is limited, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 squat jumps will also do the trick. It just sets them up for the day. It manages stress and it alerts and energizes and focuses the brain for learning. You have to send a regulated child to school, not an unregulated child. So think very carefully around your morning routine, the breakfast that he helps himself to or that you set out. And also, what do you listen to with your morning drive? Talk to him, talk to them, make a plan, take turns to actually choose the playlist, make sure it's energizing and positive. You can try chewing gum, you can try fidgeting with a fidget toy or a ball of press stick. Create a sensory smart morning routine. Collection, very important. I'm sure they are terrible when you collect them after school. So collection time, let's think around helping them to sort of just self-regulate and self-calm a little bit. You can bring a damp, clean face cloth. Have it in the car. Let him immediately wipe his hands, wipe his face, just to refresh a little bit. I mean, it's going to be a little bit like a luxurious bush lodge, but imagine how nice that would be if that will resonate with your son. Have also on hand maybe an ice cold drink with lots of ice inside, a bitsy orange juice or Milo, cold Milo with lots of ice. If they suck those ice cubes for 5 to 10 to 15 minutes, it's incredibly regulating and calming on the nervous system. Let your child change from school clothes into comfortable clothes as soon as they arrive home. Make sure the playlist during collection time is perfect. I would opt for silence, but they can choose whatever's going to feel good for them. Have a green apple that just came from the fridge on hand, which is so crispy and ice cold. If you think about afternoon routine, this is just, I'm going to quickly touch on sensory study methods and sensory breaks. So if you know your son's profile, make sure that the study methods are sensory rich. Bring in movement, bring in stretches. You can throw a little gym mat and a Pilates ball in their room. Let them go and bear weight over the ball. Read whatever they have to read, come back, do squat jumps and recite it for themselves. Sensory breaks, make sure they take the sensory break that will be perfect for them. If your child is wonderful after a swim, great. If your child is wonderful after he has helped you chop onions in the kitchen to prepare dinner, wonderful, let him cook. If your child is wonderful after planting a few new plants for spring, great, get him more pots. Just bring the pots, do whatever you need to do. If we look at evening routine, it's very important because it helps with sleep. Sensory smart evening sleep hygiene. You have to at least try to get your household to calm down from 5, 6 o'clock onwards. So you can light a candle, you can dim the lights, you can use a diffuser, a room spray, scented candles. You can turn down the volume on the TV, turn down ring volumes on your cell phone, the whole house. What works really well is a designated quiet space, a designated quiet couch or quiet room or quiet area where they can just decompress and sort of go into the evening routine wisely and calmly. Digital free, of course, and then a family meal. I think a family meal together, if it's calm, not stressful, is wonderful because it helps your child process the day. Ask questions about the day, ask them about the highlight, the high point and the low point, and then also help them prepare a little bit for the day to come. So what is the most important thing happening tomorrow? What happens tomorrow afternoon? What are you planning on studying tomorrow evening? Just a little bit, you'll know how to do it. But it helps your child process with all the sensory overload. It's almost just a blur. It just carries on until they stop. And then you often get the young child calling mom and dad back after they've read them a story to actually start talking about their day, because it's the first time they're allowed their nervous system to process what happened. So chatting around the dinner table, incredibly powerful and incredibly important. If we look at sensory plans that we can make, we can look at sensory snacks, we can look at sensory diets and sensory ergonomics. A sensory snack is something that you can do quick and easy and throughout the whole entire day. It takes you 1 to 5 minutes. It would be deep breathing, it would be stretching, having a cup of tea on the patio. It would be eating that crunchy green apple, drinking water, taking a toilet break. So make sure there are sensory snacks dispersed all through the day. A sensory diet are those things that you do 3 to 6 to 8 times a week, just keeping you sane. That would be walking, exercising, running, playing with your pets, gardening, cooking, meditation, swimming. And without those, you will absolutely die. And then sensory ergonomics is adjusting the environment, looking at what you can change, what you can do, what you can adapt, how you can actually organize, change some furniture around, make sure that your child's space and your space as well is ergonomic, sensory friendly, sensory smart. Thank you, everyone. I really feel as if 2020 is possibly going to be such an incredible year if we incorporate healthy and helpful sensory strategies now that I can guarantee your child's going to take with them for the rest of their life. If ever they get confronted with something really tricky or really challenging, they're going to think back on 2020. What did I do? What did I do to stay sane, healthy, happy, and productive? Self-empowering, seeking the solution. Let's not fixate too much on the problem. It is what it is. Thank you, St. David's parents. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Ida. Just a question from Vilma. What maximum daily duration would you recommend for screen time for kids?
Sure, that is such a tough one. Let me just get back here to my screen. There we go. Maximum duration depends on the age. If the child is older and they've got a lot of projects online that they have to hand in, it's probably going to be 5 hours at least. When they're younger, I wouldn't go more than 2, depending on the age group and obviously depending on the amount of projects that is happening online as well. But if you can limit it, if at all possible, I would limit it. The less is more, definitely with screen time. Any other questions?
Would anyone like to ask a question instead of typing it up? You can turn your mics on now if you'd like. No? Well, Ida, thank you so very, very much. You've given us some amazing ideas on how to regulate our sensory input and what to do with ourselves. So thank you so very much for your time. I have found it fascinating, and I'm sure everyone else has too. So thank you, and thank you everybody for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you. Bye.